So the Raspberry Pi Foundation today have launched a new Raspberry Pi, and it is this, a Raspberry Pi Model B Plus. And I've been lucky enough to snag one of these early, so I'm going to go through with you and break it down and tell you how this is different from the old standard Model B. So here on the left hand side we have the new Raspberry Pi Model B Plus, and on the right hand side we have a standard Raspberry Pi. Apart from the thing that makes it different is you'll notice the colour's blue, because I'm lucky enough to have one of the limited edition blue models, but it is a standard Pi, it's just got a blue PCB. So moving on to the new model, what's different? What you'll notice here is that it has a additional USB port, so there's actually 4 in total USB ports instead of just the standard 2. You'll notice that the audio jack here has been moved across the board and is now on the opposite side of the board and has actually been shrunk in size. You'll also notice that the composite output, video output, has actually been removed altogether and has been taken up by this new row of GPIO output pins. So whereas the old model had 26, this new one does have 40. So this audio jack has actually had an upgrade. Apparently the audio is going to sound better, so I'm quite eager to get XBMC on this and start playing some tunes through it and see how that works. So the composite video hasn't moved completely, it's actually moved onto this audio jack, and what you'll see is actually under here there are 4 points soldered onto it which are actually the analog video output, so that's good. Other slightly more subtle changes are that because the audio jack's been moved up to this side here, the camera input has actually been moved up a little bit next to the HDMI output, which is pretty much in the same place. Also, the power adapter has been moved from this side here just round to the corner, and the display port, as a result of the change in space, has been moved up to there. Also, some very subtle changes that you may not be able to notice quite so clearly is that the old Pis have 2 mounting points here and here, whereas this new one actually has 4 in total in each of the corner, and that's going to make a huge difference, because with just 2 pins they can wobble a little bit if you do mount them on just the 2, whereas the 4 will mean that they'll be a lot more solid. This does have the same CPU and memory, which is under this chip here, so it's still got the same 700 MHz processor and the same 512 meg of RAM, and it has the network chip here, which is what controls the Ethernet jack and the 4 USB ports. So on to what's different on the bottom side is on this one you have the standard full-sized SD card socket, whereas on this new one you have a micro SD card socket, which means that you can use a slightly smaller one. And what that does means is that the this particular Pi, its form factor is much lower. Obviously there's far less jutting out. It still does stick out a tiny amount, but it is, as you can see, it's significantly better than on the old Pi. So this is going to make, obviously, cases a lot more streamlined and you're not going to have problems. So one major benefit to moving to the smaller SD card over the larger ones is that some people may have found over time of using the Pis, if you use them quite as rigorously as I do, the contacts between here and the actual SD card can become a bit loose, and you often find that people will need to jam in a piece of plastic or something just to kind of keep the contacts down on it, because without that it often sometimes won't boot. And I think with this new type of connector that you can kind of get from a mobile phone, I think that will have a lot more success. So what many of you may have seen on the market is these, which are adapters that allow an SD card to fit in, and because they're a bit thicker than a normal SD card, they actually stop that problem with the SD card coming loose. So whether or not you've got the old model or the new model, but this is definitely a problem that has been fixed. One thing that you can also tell is that whereas the old Pis, the edges on the board are really quite sharp, whereas these are actually a lot more rounded. So it actually looks a lot more like the original credit card. It kind of, states itself to be credit card sized computer, so nice rounded corners. Now there are a few things to note here. One is that some of the major components, such as the audio jack, the power connector, even the HDMI port and the new jacks and the GPIO, to be honest, all of the major components have been moved and shuffled all around the board, which means that your old existing cases will not fit at all. So this is going to be interesting to see which case manufacturers such as Pimoroni, ModMyPi and others, Syntec also, and see what cases that they come out with and how quickly they can produce cases for this. The power consumption of it is actually less than the standard Model B. It's between 0.5 and 1 watt less than the existing B model. So for your battery pack and your mobile projects, you're going to see some significant benefits on that, which is great considering it's got an extra 2 USB ports as well. So with this new extended GPIO pin headers, it gives us essentially more standard GPIO headers than we had previously. There is an ID-SD and an ID-SC. Quite frankly, I have very little idea what these things do, so hopefully in a future video I will learn what they are and I will teach you. Other than that, all of the normal standard connectors are pretty much the same as what they were before. So one last thing to notice is that if you've been using these micro SD card readers and you've got a little SD card, I quickly booted this one up. This has been in the Model A and it didn't boot, it just had a black screen. What you do get in the box, and there's the box, is you do get a SD card with an 8 gig SD card. So you've got the adapter to plug it into your laptop or whatever you use to image it, and then you get an SD card in there, and that should boot straight out of the box. So I believe that comes with the package. We'll find out what Element 14 is selling. So let's give this a boot and make sure it works. So when it boots, you'll notice there's the power and the activity light, and again, like lots of other things, they've been moved as well, completely out of the way to the back of the board. Everything boots to Noob as normal, and you're ready to use your Pi as you would have. So I'd mentioned that the lights had moved, and your network link light and your activity light have been moved to here and here, actually on the network chip itself, very much like you get on your laptop on a lot of other machines. So they are still there, but just in a different place. In general, everything is being streamlined really. All the ports are in line with the PCB and aren't hanging off anymore, and it's a far more polished version of the device, and I think it's a really great revision of what they've done, and I think we should all go pick one up. So if you like what we do, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and subscribe to the YouTube channel.